Nobody tells you this, but most people spend their entire lives being controlled by someone who should have disappeared long ago. An older version of themselves. It is that version that still feels the same fear it did years ago, that reacts the same way when criticized, that gives up at the first obstacle, and that has believed the same stories for so long that it now calls them the truth. The most surprising part is that almost no one realizes it. They think they are making new decisions, when in reality they are simply repeating the person they learned to be. That is why so many people move to a new city, change jobs, start new relationships, pursue new goals, and yet still end up living through the same conflicts. Because changing your surroundings has never been enough. As long as the same identity keeps making the decisions, life will keep producing similar results. Your future will be nothing more than a replay of your past. That is exactly what the Stoics understood more than 2,000 years ago. They knew that the greatest obstacle to a new life is almost never the world around you. It is the old version of yourself that keeps interpreting the present through the fears of the past. And perhaps this is one of the most liberating ideas you will hear today. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to strengthen every single day. The past is not still alive because time refused to take it away. It is still alive because it continues to shape the way you think, feel, and respond. But every identity built through repetition can be transformed when you begin repeating different choices. In this video, I have gathered the most powerful Stoic lessons to help you recognize that old version of yourself, take back control of your life, and build an identity that is finally worthy of the person you want to become. Every lesson is practical, and the last one will show you how to turn what once seemed like your greatest weakness into the starting point of your rebuilding. Write just one sentence in the comments. I keep moving forward. Because no transformation happens when you simply wait for life to change. It begins the moment the old version of yourself stops making decisions for the person you are becoming. Part 1. Kill your former self. There is a powerful image in Stoic philosophy that very few people notice, the image of a tree. No one looks at a tree and expects it to keep the same leaves forever. Every season makes part of it let go. The old leaves die so that new ones can grow, and that process is exactly what keeps the tree alive. Human beings, however, try to do the exact opposite. They want to build a new life while staying attached to an old version of themselves. They want confidence, but they keep feeding the identity of someone who is insecure. They want discipline, but every single day they repeat the same habits that reinforce inconsistency. They want peace, while continuing to think like someone who is at war with themselves. Then comes the frustration, because nothing changes, not because they lack ability, but because the one trying to change is still the same person they were before. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that seems simple, yet carries incredible depth. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. There is one central word in that quote: change, not improvement, not adjustment, not adaptation. Change. It means becoming someone different. It means understanding that an identity is not a prison. It is a habit, and every habit can be replaced. But there is tremendous resistance to letting the old version die, because no matter how much suffering it has caused, it is familiar, and your mind would rather choose familiar pain than unfamiliar uncertainty. That is why so many people spend years in relationships that break them down, in jobs that drain them, or trapped in routines that make them unhappy, not because those things are good, but because they are familiar. The brain interprets what is familiar as safe, even when it is harmful. And that is where one of the mind's greatest traps begins, believing that changing means losing a part of yourself, when, in reality, changing means allowing the part that no longer serves you to finally rest. Think about an actor who plays the same character for 20 years. Over time, he leaves the stage, goes home and keeps talking, walking and reacting like that character. Little by little, he stops remembering who he was before the role. That is exactly what happens to many people. One day they felt afraid, then they felt afraid again and again, until they stopped saying, "I feel afraid," and started saying, "I'm a fearful person." The emotion became an identity, and when an emotion becomes an identity, it stops feeling temporary and starts feeling permanent. The Stoics fought precisely against this illusion. They understood that there is a profound difference between experiencing something and becoming it. You can feel insecure without being an insecure person. You can fail without being a failure. You can fall without being defeated. But once you start repeating the same story every day, your mind stops seeing it as a story and starts treating it as the truth. That is why Epictetus said that people are disturbed not by things themselves, but by the opinions they hold about them. That reflection applies not only to events, but also to identity, because the opinion you have about yourself ends up defining the limits of your own life. And here is a question that has the power to change everything. If today you completely lost your memory and forgot who you believe you are, would you still behave exactly the same way? Or would you try things that today you do not even consider possible? Most of the limitations you carry do not come from reality. They come from a story you have repeated thousands of times, and every story can be rewritten. But that requires a difficult decision, accepting that part of you needs to come to an end, not because it was bad, but because it has already fulfilled its purpose. Just as a tree lets its leaves fall without guilt, you also need to learn to let old versions of yourself fall away. You are not betraying who you are by changing. You are not abandoning your true self. You are simply choosing to stop feeding what no longer belongs in the life you want to build. Because there is one truth that very few people have the courage to accept. Your future will not be built by the person you used to be. It will be built by the person you decide to become, starting today. Part 2. Things don't happen to you, they happen for you. Have you ever stopped in the middle of a difficult moment and asked yourself, why is this happening to me? The loss you never expected, the betrayal you never deserved, the plan that fell apart at the exact moment you believed in it the most, and in the middle of it all, a feeling that cuts deep, the feeling that life somehow chose you to suffer. That feeling is lying to you. And as long as you believe it, you hand over control of your own story to whatever happened to you, because what truly paralyzes us is never the event itself, it is the meaning we attach to it. Two people lose their jobs on the very same day. One sees it as the end of everything. The other sees it as the beginning of something they never would have had the courage to pursue if life had not forced the door open. The event was exactly the same. The future each of them built from it was not. And the difference between them was not luck, talent, or preparation. It was the question each one chose to ask in that very moment. The Stoics understood this more than 2,000 years ago, and what they discovered remains one of the most liberating truths there is. It is not things themselves that disturb us, but the way we choose to interpret them. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire on the brink of collapse. He faced wars, epidemics, and betrayals inside his own palace, and even then he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." A man carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders knew that true power was never found in what happened. It was found in how he responded to what happened, and you have that same power. You always have. Notice something you may never have realized before. You do not suffer during the event itself. You suffer inside the story you tell yourself about it. The moment itself lasts only seconds. The layoff, the phone call, the words that hurt. What lasts for years is what you keep repeating in your mind afterward. The interpretation that becomes a sentence, the meaning that becomes an identity. People think they are trapped by what happened. In reality, they are trapped by what they decided it meant, and that is exactly where a power almost no one uses lives. The power to choose how you respond to what happens, not what you feel. Feeling is inevitable. It is part of being alive. But what you do with what you feel, that has always been yours to decide. If great men were able to turn every limitation into fuel, then the idea that what happened to you has the power to define you stops being the truth. It becomes a choice. Acceptance does not mean agreement. It does not mean pretending it does not hurt. It means refusing to waste your energy fighting what can no longer be undone, and directing that same energy toward what is still within your control. The past is fixed. The meaning you give it is not, but there is work here that no one can do for you, looking inward and facing what you have spent years avoiding. The wounds you buried, believing that burying them was the same as healing them. The pain you claimed was gone, yet still makes your decisions without asking permission. In the relationship you sabotage before the other person can leave you. In the opportunity you never take because someone once told you that you were not capable. In the dream you stop chasing because wanting it hurt too much the last time. That weight does not stay silent. It rules from a distance, disguised as your personality, convincing you that it has always been who you are. Breaking free from it does not mean erasing what you have lived through. It means taking the pen that writes your future out of the hands of your past. Because life does not happen to you. It happens for you. And when you stop asking why this happened and start asking what you are going to build from it, the loss you still carry, the betrayal that still weighs on you, the failure you use as evidence against yourself, none of it disappears. But it stops being the thing that breaks you and becomes the thing that shaped you. The very same blow that breaks one person awakens another. The difference was never in the blow itself. It was in the person who decided what to do after it. And that decision, from the very beginning, has always been yours. Part 3. Master your emotions like never before. There is a person inside you who needs to be left behind. It's the person who loses control and regrets it afterward, who backs away at the exact moment they should move forward, who listens to fear more closely than to their own desire. The person who has already decided, before even trying, that they aren't capable. You know this version of yourself well. You've lived with it for so long that you've stopped noticing where it ends and where you begin. And here's what no one tells you. You are not that person. You've simply grown used to being them. Because I'm anxious, I'm hot-tempered, I'm insecure are not descriptions of who you are. They are habits you've repeated so many times that they've become part of your identity. And every habit, no matter how old, no matter how deeply rooted, can be undone by someone who decides they will no longer carry it. The phrase, "I've always been this way," is not a life sentence. It's the most expensive excuse there is, because the price is the entire life you could have lived without that burden. Most people live without an internal compass. They feel anger and explode. They feel fear and stop. They feel insecure and retreat, as if every emotion were a command that had to be obeyed the moment it arrived. But emotion is not a command. It's information. And information isn't something you obey. It's something you read, understand, and then decide what to do with. Seneca said that most of what makes us suffer lives in our imagination, not in reality. Think about the depth of that insight. The anger that consumes you isn't what happened. It's how deeply you feel offended by what happened. The fear that paralyzes you isn't the real danger. It's the danger your mind imagined and accepted as certainty. Once you understand that, you realize you were never at the mercy of your emotions. You were at the mercy of the way you reacted to them, without ever questioning them, even once. Controlling your emotions doesn't mean pretending they don't exist. Suppressing them isn't strength, it's simply postponing the explosion. Stoicism isn't a philosophy that teaches you to erase what you feel. It teaches something far more difficult and far more powerful: to feel everything and still choose. To let anger exist and decide not to strike back. To let fear exist and take the step anyway. To let insecurity scream and speak anyway, even if your voice shakes, but speak. Think about who you would become if your decisions stopped being dictated by what you happen to feel during the worst moment of your day. If you stop treating the fear that shows up every time something important is about to happen as absolute truth. How many conversations would you have? How many doors would you open? How many times would you stay standing where you once would have fallen apart? Not because the weight disappeared, but because you stopped letting the weight decide for you. That is the turning point. The moment you take command of what you feel, you stop being dragged around by every passing emotion and start using those emotions for what they truly are: signals, not chains. Fear stops being a wall and becomes a compass pointing exactly toward where growth is waiting. Anger stops being an eruption and becomes fuel, energy that you direct instead of spilling everywhere. You stop being a prisoner of your inner state and become its author. And this is where your old self dies, not in one dramatic moment, not on some life-changing day of revelation. It dies in the small choices where you would have given in before, but now you don't. In the response you hold back because you no longer need to win that argument. In the step you take, even while you're scared. Every one of those choices buries a little more of the smaller version of yourself and awakens the version that has always been there, buried beneath years of saying, "That's just who I am," because the person you want to become doesn't live on the other side of one great transformation. They live on the other side of one decision, repeated every single day. The decision to stop letting the emotion of the moment become stronger than the direction of your life. And that decision you can begin making right now. Part 4. What doesn't challenge you, doesn't build you. What would Hercules have become if there had never been a single monster for him to face? Epictetus asked his students that question, and it still challenges us more than 2,000 years later. Because if Hercules' life had been easy, comfortable, with no beasts to defeat, and no impossible labors to complete, he never would have become a legend. He would have become just another forgotten name in history. The monsters were not obstacles standing in the way of his greatness. They were the way. Without them, there would have been no hero to remember. And this isn't just about the heroes of the past, it's about you. The same principle is what builds you into someone stronger. Think about anyone you truly admire, not because of how they look, not because of what they own, but because of who they are. Look at that person's real story, and you'll always find the same thing. They went through something, they lost, they broke, they were betrayed. They started over from nothing. They faced what seemed impossible. What you admire in them wasn't born despite those hardships. It was born because of them. The strength they carry today is made from the very battles they could have avoided, but chose not to. No one becomes admirable by living a life without resistance. Just as no muscle grows without resistance, no character is forged without pressure. Absolute comfort, the very thing so many people spend their lives chasing, is where human potential falls asleep and never wakes up. It's like spending your entire life lying in bed, rolling over, falling back asleep, and never discovering what you were truly capable of. The Stoics called adversity the training ground of the soul. That wasn't poetry. It was a precise description of what hardship does to the people who face it head-on. Yes, it tests you, but that's only half of the story. The other half is that it builds you. Every difficult thing you overcome leaves you with something comfort never could, undeniable proof that you can endure. And once you know you can endure, you stop fearing half the things that paralyze everyone else. But there's a trap here. and it's where almost everyone falls. When a challenge appears, the old version of you will offer an escape that sounds wise. Postpone it, go around it, wait for a better time. It will call that prudence. It will call it common sense. It will call it maturity. I'll do it later. This isn't the right time. I'm just not made for this. And the most dangerous part is that running away doesn't hurt in the moment. There is no punishment. There is no immediate consequence. Life keeps moving. That's exactly why it's so easy to choose the comfortable path without realizing what you're leaving behind. But every ounce of strength you fail to build today is exactly the strength you'll wish you had when the next challenge comes. And it will come, even bigger. The good news is that life never closes that account against you. Every new hardship is another opportunity to build what was left unfinished. The step you didn't climb yesterday is still there, waiting for you, exactly where you left it, the next time you choose to face it. Because that's what adversity truly is. Not a wall standing in your way, a step that lifts you higher if you have the courage to climb it. The problem in front of you right now, the one you wish didn't exist, didn't come to stop you. It came to show you what you're really made of. And there is only one way to discover that, by facing it, not by running from it. Your old self may try to run, but your new self understands something that changes everything. The difficulty isn't working against you. It's working for you, offering exactly the kind of resistance you need to become stronger than it. So the next time something difficult appears and everything inside you screams to back away, understand what's really happening. Life isn't punishing you. Life is giving you for free the only material from which a strong person is built. That point of tension you're trying to avoid is the exact place where your next version is waiting to be born. Not on the day everything becomes easy, because easy builds no one, but on the day you decide to face what would have been far more comfortable to ignore. Hercules didn't choose the monsters that crossed his path. He chose not to retreat before them. And that choice, not luck, not talent, not the absence of monsters, is what transformed a man into a legend. Your monsters have already appeared, or they will. What will define you isn't how big they are. It's what you decide to do when you're standing face to face with them. And that decision, the decision to move forward when it would be easier to run away, is the most powerful thing a human being can do with their life. Part 5. Stop handing your peace over to the outside world. Take a moment to notice how many of your joys depend on things you cannot control. The compliment you need to hear before you feel good enough. The outcome that has to go your way for the day to feel worthwhile. The message that has to be answered, the recognition that has to arrive, the person who has to act the way you hoped they would. Your entire peace hanging by threads, held in the hands of other people, of chance, of the world. And then you wonder why you live with anxiety. The answer is simple and uncomfortable. You outsourced your happiness. You handed control of it over to everything outside yourself, and now you live at the mercy of variables that will never obey your command. This is one of the deepest habits of your old self. It believes everything will finally be okay when life on the outside falls into place, when the money comes, when that person changes, when the recognition arrives, when life finally starts cooperating, and so it spends an entire lifetime waiting. Because life on the outside never falls perfectly into place all at once. There is always one missing piece. There is always something out of place. The moment you tie your piece to that, you sign a contract for permanent dissatisfaction. The Stoics drew a distinction that has the power to reorganize an entire life. There are things that depend on you, and there are things that do not. What other people think does not depend on you. What happens, for the most part, does not depend on you. The final outcome of almost everything does not depend on you. But your will, your effort, your attitude toward whatever comes next, the character with which you play the game, those belong entirely to you. And this is exactly where almost everyone invests their energy in the wrong place, exhausting themselves trying to control the uncontrollable, while neglecting the only territory where they truly have authority. Turn the equation around. Redirect every bit of energy you waste trying to control what is not in your hands toward what is. You cannot control whether you will be chosen, but you can control how well you prepare. You cannot control whether someone will love you back, but you can control the kind of person you choose to become. You cannot control the outcome, but you can control whether you give your best or settle for half your effort. And when your peace depends only on those things, on the things that answer to you, it stops being ripped away every time the world refuses to cooperate. This is not about settling. It's not about giving up on what you want, giving up on your dreams, or giving up on your pursuit. It is about wanting something with all your strength while refusing to hang your worth on the outcome. It is the difference between the archer who does everything right, aims with precision, trains for a lifetime, releases the arrow, and understands that the moment it leaves the bow, the wind is no longer his responsibility. He did his part with excellence. The rest was never under his control, and demanding that you control what was never yours to control is the fastest path to suffering. And there is an extraordinary freedom hidden in this, one that very few people ever experience. When your happiness no longer depends on external circumstances, no one else has power over your inner state. Someone's criticism no longer ruins your entire day. An unexpected setback no longer tears apart your entire week. You stop being a leaf carried away by every gust of wind and become the root that remains firm no matter the weather. Things continue to happen, good and bad, but they no longer decide who you are. That is what separates the old self from the new one. The old self searched for happiness where it could never be found, outside itself, in what it could never control. Always one step away, always waiting for something to happen. The new self discovers that it was there all along, built through its own will, its own judgment, its own daily choices, and what is built within, no one can take away. It does not depend on approval. It does not depend on luck. It does not depend on anyone else being present for it to exist. That is the kind of happiness that cannot be stolen, because it was never in the hands of the world. It was always in yours. Part 6. Nothing will be able to hurt you. There is a certain kind of person you have probably met at some point in your life. Someone you could criticize, provoke, or try to put down, and still never manage to shake. Not because they are cold, because they carry something inside themselves that is not for sale, not up for negotiation, and does not depend on your approval. You walk away from the conversation with the strange feeling that you just spoke to someone who did not need anything you had to offer. That person was not born that way, and you can become that person too. What no one tells you, but what will completely change the way you face every attack for the rest of your life, is this: nothing outside of you has the power to hurt you on its own. A word is only sound in the air until it finds, inside you, a wounded place where it can settle. The insult that brings you down needed one of your insecurities to have any effect. The comment that keeps you awake at night found a doubt that was already living inside you long before anyone ever said a word. No one can reopen a wound that does not exist. They can only press on the ones you have not healed yet. And instead of leaving you exposed, this gives you back control. Because if what hurts you points directly to what is still unresolved inside you, then everything that wounds you becomes a map. A precise map, showing you exactly where you still have work to do if you want to become untouchable. The criticism that makes you furious is revealing the place where you still doubt yourself. The provocation that throws you off balance is pointing to the exact place where your foundation is still weak. Stop hating the people who reveal these things to you. Without realizing it, they are showing you where you still need to build. When your identity hangs on the outside, you become dependent on being right, on being approved of, on never being challenged. And someone like that is always defending a territory that anyone can invade with a single sentence. You live at war, exhausted, reacting to every word as if it were a real threat. Because when you need approval to feel whole, every criticism feels like a piece of your very existence is being torn away. But there is another way, and the Stoics knew it. True strength was never about building higher walls against the world. It was about no longer having anything inside that needed defending. Marcus Aurelius could have ordered the execution of anyone who insulted him, yet he chose not to give any of them that power. Not because he wore thicker armor, because he had become someone in whom an insult could no longer find a place to land. He did not overcome insults by fighting them. He overcame them by becoming immune to them from within. And understand this difference well, because it changes everything. Being unshakable is not the same as being numb. A numb person has simply shut everything down, stopped feeling, and calls that strength, when in reality it is just another form of imprisonment. Being unshakable is the opposite. It is feeling the words arrive, recognizing the blow, and still remaining on your feet, because who you are was never built on the approval someone is trying to take away from you. You feel it. You simply do not collapse. And that kind of strength is built with your own hands every single day. Every time you face an insecurity instead of running from it, one more door closes forever. Every mistake from your past that you make peace with stops being a lever other people can pull. Every time you decide that your worth is not up for a vote, you reclaim a power you had been giving away for free to people who never deserved it in the first place. It is not magic. It is not a gift. It is not luck. It is inner work done in silence, far from everyone's eyes. And it is the most valuable work there is, because what it builds, no one can tear down. Imagine what it will be like to walk through the world this way. People will keep talking, provoking, testing you, because that is simply what people do. The difference is that they will reach you and find someone who no longer has a place left to be wounded. Their words will strike the foundation you built and slide away without leaving a mark. You will not need to strike back. You will not need to explain yourself. You will not need to prove anything. You will simply remain whole, while the person you used to be would have fallen apart. That is the power waiting for you on the other side of this work. Not the coldness of someone who has given up on feeling, but the freedom of someone who no longer has anything left to defend. And the person who no longer has anything left to defend finally discovers that nothing outside of them ever had the power to hurt them. It only had the power they chose to give it. And from this moment on, that power returns to your hands, where it always belonged. Part 7. The dream you buried is still alive. There is a kind of death that happens in silence, without anyone noticing, sometimes not even the person living through it. It is not the death of the body. It is the death of dreams inside someone who is still alive. It happens slowly. First, you postpone a dream because it is not the right time. Then, you postpone it again, because life got harder. Before long, you begin telling yourself that maybe it was never meant for you anyway, that it was just a childish dream, that realistic people do not waste their time dreaming. And then, one day, without any warning, you realize you stopped wanting it. Not because you achieved what you wanted, but because you gave up so gradually that you never even noticed the moment you let it go. This is one of the most dangerous disguises of your old self. It does not attack you head-on. It convinces you with a voice that sounds wise and mature that letting go was the sensible thing to do. It calls giving up realism, it calls resignation maturity, and it makes you believe that settling for half of what you wanted was actually a sign of wisdom. But the Stoics understood philosophy in a way that few people expect. To them, it was never an intellectual exercise, never a pastime for discussing beautiful ideas. It was medicine. The early Stoics said it plainly: philosophy existed to heal the soul. Just as the body needs movement to stay healthy, the soul needs its own kind of care, or it begins to wither. And a soul that has stopped dreaming is a soul that has stopped being cared for, because dreaming was never naive. It is the exact opposite. It is the clearest sign that something inside you still believes life is worth building, that tomorrow can be greater than today, that you still have room to grow. The moment that belief goes out, life does not become more realistic. It becomes smaller. You stop building something with your days and start merely getting through them. And here is what your new self needs to understand. The dream you buried did not die. It was simply buried beneath years of "I can't, it's not for me," and it's too late now. Your ability to want is still completely alive inside you, waiting for just one thing: for you to stop treating surrender as destiny and start calling it what it really is. A choice, one that can be undone at any moment, including right now. Replanting a dream does not require having your whole life figured out. A seed does not need a guarantee that it will become a tree before it starts growing. It simply needs to be placed back into the soil, and in your case, that soil is the present, the only place where anything can truly begin. Not next Monday, not next year, not when the conditions are perfect, because they never will be. Right now, with what you have exactly where you are, think about what you wanted before life taught you to want less. That project, that change, that version of yourself that once existed as a real possibility before you quietly filed it away. It is not too late. The only thing that makes a dream impossible is the final decision to stop trying, and as long as you are breathing, that decision is never truly final. It is being made again every single day, with every choice between believing again or continuing to give up. Your old self looks at those dreams and sees wasted time, missed opportunities, doors that have already closed. Your new self looks at those very same dreams and sees something completely different: fertile ground waiting to be planted again. The difference between the two was never age, never circumstances, never everything that has already happened. It was the decision to plant one more time, even after every harvest that never came. So let that become your commitment starting today. If you have never lived an entire year truly believing in yourself, never looked at what you want and said, "I'm going to give it everything I've got," let this be the year. Not because success is guaranteed, but because a life in which you at least planted something is worth infinitely more than a lifetime spent wondering what might have grown if you had only found the courage to try. Replant your dreams today, because as long as there is life, there is still soil. And as long as there is soil, you can always begin again. Part 8. Rebuilding yourself is your answer. Every building begins with a cleared piece of land, and there is a cruel irony in that. Sometimes life has to tear down who you were to give you the space to build who you are capable of becoming. No one chooses that moment. It arrives when something collapses, an ending, a loss, a failure that leaves you staring at the ruins of the life you thought you were going to have. And in the middle of those ruins, one question appears, the question that determines everything that comes next. Are you going to spend the rest of your life mourning what fell apart, or are you going to use the empty ground to build something new? Among the Stoics, that question had a name. They faced it through a principle that seems impossible at first. Amor fati. Love your fate. not endure it, not tolerate it, not accept it with your head down. Love it, even the parts that knocked you down, because they understood something that takes most people a lifetime to learn. Fighting against what has already happened is the surest way to remain exactly where you are. The past is the only thing in the universe that is absolutely unchangeable, and spending your strength trying to rewrite it means giving up the present, the only place where you can still act, in exchange for a battle that was already lost before it even began. But there is one advantage in ruins that almost no one can see while they are buried beneath them. Someone who has been forced to start over no longer carries the burden of keeping up appearances. You no longer have to protect an image. You no longer have to stay loyal to an old version of yourself. You no longer have to pretend everything is still standing. For the first time, you are completely free to decide what you want to build. The person who has never fallen keeps building the same structure out of habit, afraid to disturb what seems stable. You, who watched everything collapse, gained something they do not have, the chance to build on purpose, choosing every brick instead of simply repeating what you inherited without ever questioning it. And here is what separates the people who rebuild themselves from the ones who remain in the rubble. It is not the size of the collapse. It is how quickly they pick up the first brick, because rebuilding does not begin on the day you feel strong again. It begins before that, on the days when you feel no strength at all and choose to act anyway. It begins with the small action taken when you do not feel like it, with the routine you return to without any guarantee that it will work out. That is where the new person is born, in the solid reality of ordinary days. Not in a moment of revelation, but through a series of choices that no one sees and no one applauds, and no one is going to applaud. That is a truth you need to hear, because many people expect rebuilding to earn recognition, and it almost never does. You will rise in silence. You will put the pieces back together on your own, far from everyone's eyes, with no one there to tell you that you are on the right path. And that is exactly what makes your rebuilding truly yours. It was never meant for an audience. It was meant so that you could one day look yourself in the eye and recognize the person who found the strength to stand again. What is built that way without applause becomes the one thing that no future circumstance can tear down. So let this be your answer. Not revenge against those who hurt you. Not waiting for the day when everything finally makes sense again. Not an endless complaint about what collapsed. Your answer is to take the ground that remains, no matter how devastated it looks, and start building with what you have, exactly where you are. Today, not in another life, not when the pain finally goes away, because it only begins to fade after you start, never before. Stand up and build. Not because the ruins no longer hurt, but because you are the only person in the world with the power to turn them into a foundation. What fell, fell. What comes next is still entirely yours to decide. And that decision, the most important one of all, begins the very moment you choose to take the first step. The Stoic house transforms the wisdom of the ancients into strength for your everyday life. If this message resonated with you, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to keep walking this path with us. See you soon.